back. So Fugbao, can you please tell me what is the same thing that other beliefs speak or other religions?
Other religions say that um, God controls this world and they're never wrong. Nothing is wrong. All they do is right. And Buddhism says they are the truth too. So how do we know that Buddhism is right and the other religions are wrong?
That's right. I actually answered this question quite recently. So finding the truth. Some people, what they do, they just try the different religions. What I would like to suggest to you is that you study those religions and see if they align with your attitude. For example, I personally believe that there is a sense, that there is a meaning why some people are poor, why some people are rich, why some people live long, why some people live short, why some people are successful, why some people are not successful. I believe that there is a reason for that. So that's my attitude. That's part of my character. I believe that the world makes sense. Now, there are people who believe that world does not need to make sense. So for them, Buddhism will be difficult to accept. So that's the way it is, like each person is different. And moreover, with life, we change our attitudes. My attitude now is that the world makes sense. Christianity believes that the world does not need to make sense because God just decides this and it will be. Decide something else and it will be something else. He will decide that you will become poor even though you were doing only good things all your life and even worshiping the God, but he will just make you poor because he wants to, because some angel came to him and said, certainly this one doesn't believe in you. So you need to check him. And then the God will just make you ill and kill all of your cattle and make you homeless just to check whether you actually worship him. Does that make any sense? Doesn't make sense to me, because why did he try it with Job? Why wouldn't he try it with the other millions of people? Why did he try it with one? Doesn't make any sense. If it makes sense, then he would have to try it with everybody, right? But he doesn't. There are so many evil people who not only that they do not worship the God, but they kill, they steal, commit adultery, tell lies, drink alcohol, but they are immensely rich and successful. Everything they want, they get until they die. They live 90 years, 100 years, they get everything they want, and they just die happily and peacefully. Does that make sense? Why would the God do this to them? Doesn't make any sense. But what is more important here is with children. Does it make sense that there are some children who live, let's say 1 month, they get born, they live 1 month or 2 months or 6 months or 1 year, they suffer excruciating pain and they die. Does that make any sense? Why would the God do it? It doesn't make sense. Now in Buddhism, it's totally opposite. In Buddhism, everything makes sense. In Buddhism, the law of karma, that your actions bring consequence, suddenly makes sense into everything. Well, it's more complicated, and we'll probably get into it later. But as soon as you understand the complexity, you will find out that actually everything makes too much sense. It's scary how it's everything superbly fair. It is scary, and that's why Buddhists want to get free from this world, because everything being fair is going against the human nature, where we want to deceive a little, use a little tricks, get a little advantage. But as soon as you see that everything is so fair, that no tricks actually can trick this fairness, that there is no way how to deceive this fairness, then it's scary. Moreover, it's scary because the fairness is not related only to the present, what we do now, but also to the past. We don't know what we did in the past, or I don't. I don't remember my past lives. So how do I know whether I killed my mother or father in my past lives? I don't know. I don't remember my past lives. How do I remember whether I stole something big or harmed someone? I don't know. So I cannot do something about it. For example, okay, so in the past life, for example, I would steal someone clothes. So in this life, I would try to balance it out by giving and donating a lot of clothes, so that hopefully, sometimes it doesn't happen, but sometimes the bad deed and good deeds mix up. So you don't get that much of pleasure for your good deed, but also you don't get that much of suffering for your bad deed, because they mix up. But sometimes they don't mix up, and we never know when they mix up and whether those particular actions will mix up. It's a little complicated. But in the end, everything is perfectly fair. If you count it up, all the ups and downs, you will end up with perfect zero. So that's the Buddhist point of view. And it aligns with my attitude. I believe that world makes sense. Now, for example, in science, if you take the humanist point of view, they do not believe that world has to make sense. Okay, so for them, it's fine. If you believe nothing, or if you believe in God creator, those are two extremes that the Buddha has rejected. The extreme of nihilism, where there is no life after death, and that there's only these actions that we do and no consequences. And then the eternalism, that means that after your life, you will live forever, somewhere in hell or heaven or whatever. Two extremes. The Buddha says we need to reject these two extremes and go by the middle path. The middle path does not accept extreme, it accepts causality. You will not find causality in other religions. Indeed, that's something you don't have in other religions. Only Buddhism teaches causality. Interestingly, scientists like Buddhism for that very fact, because no religion accepts causality, but science and Buddhism accept causality. But, believing in past lives and future lives, that will probably take some more time. You can read in the books from Ian Stevenson and Jim B. Tucker. Ian Stevenson, Jim B. Tucker. You can read from them about the research about past lives. They visited young kids, 3 years, 5-year-olds, who just started to know, to learn how to say that. They just started to get the skill of speaking. So they could ask the children about their past life, and then find out, based on those details, find out whether such person actually existed, and then see if those details match those details of the historical person and the details given by the children. They have conducted interviews like this with about, I think, several thousands of children. All of them are very strictly written in detail. There is even biology related to rebirth, because when they found out that if the child remembers their past life, because not every child remembers, if the child remembers their past lives, and for example, they don't have fingers, the child remembers a man or a woman in the past, and they were tortured and their fingers were cut off. These scientists, they find out the person, and they find out that indeed the person's fingers were cut off. Or the person in the past life was shot by a gun into their neck or something, and now the child has a birthmark right there. In Thailand, you know what they do? In Thailand, if your grandma is passing away, you take a, how do you call this? Permanent marker. You take a permanent marker and you mark some place on her body so that in her next life, if she's born as a human and remembers her past life, then you can check according to her birthmark whether it is right there where you made the dot with your permanent marker. And it really works. It really works. It's amazing. Like in Thailand, rebirth is just part of their life. It's amazing. So there is teaching on rebirth, you know, in Hinduism, for example, but not in the way that Buddhism teaches it. In Hinduism, it's a little complicated because they have it mixed up with their concept of castes. So it's different. All right. So different people believe in different things based on the knowledge that they can get, because some people just cannot get the right knowledge. Like when I learned about Buddhism when I was 11 years old, I did not find it interesting at all, but I learned it from a Christian. Then when I was 15, I learned Buddhism from books written by Buddhists, and immediately it was very interesting. I wonder if there is some reason. So it depends. It depends on the people. Buddhism teaches different things because Buddhism is based on clear understanding and experience of the world as a whole. Now, if you take, for example, Muhammad, or if you take Jesus Christ, or if you take Moses, or if you take Baha'u'llah, or if you take Rael, or whoever else is a founder of their religious creed, you will see that they are dependent on what a certain entity tells them. They're just listeners. They're believers just like you. They believe what they have heard, what they have seen. That's it. They don't have the skill to access any time. Whereas for the Buddha, he had the skill to access his knowledge anytime, 24 hours a day, entirely free. He was entirely free to find any information he ever wanted without any difficulty. He was not dependent on an angel or a god or anything else to reveal to them the truth. He had the direct access to truth. The others in all other religions have indirect access to truth because they need to access it through an angel or a god or some signs, some whatever. So this is the difference. And when you have direct access to information, of course, it will be a little different from the case when it is indirect. And if it is indirect with someone who has vested interest, do you know what's that? Vested interest is when the God or the angel have some expectations from you. So when the God or angel tell you, you now will be believing in the God because the God needs you as a slave. Well, that's a vested interest. It's an interest that gives you gain. And God wants people and beings to worship him because he believes that he is worthy of that. We believe in God who wants people to worship him. We believe in such God. We don't have any problem believing in existence of such God, except that we just don't worship that God. Because we believe that we worship someone who the God himself actually respects. But he will not tell. He will tell to us, to the Buddhists or to the Buddha, but he will not tell to those who respect him because he doesn't want to lose their respect. It's the personality of the God. He's just like that. He has his weaknesses, such as conceit. Well, if you read Quran, it's all just and only about conceit. Who's more conceited than God? Nobody. You cannot find a being that's more conceited than the God. But the Buddha says that the most conceited beings are dogs, though. Just for information. Dogs are the most conceited in the world. But I personally, when I read a Bible or Quran or other religions, I feel like the God is the most conceited being in the world ever. Totally. But those are not, that's not God from Buddhism, because Christian God kills and steals, whereas Buddhist God never kills, never steals. So yes, we believe in God who wishes others to worship him, who thinks that he created the world. Well, yeah, that he created the world, that he has power over the world. We believe in that God. We absolutely accept and believe in his existence. Totally. We totally accept that he has full power over us. We totally accept that. We just do not accept that it's true. We accept that he believes it, but we don't accept that it's true. So we believe that the God is just misguided, that he's deluded. That's what we believe. But the Christian God has no space in Buddhism. God, such as the one that we teach, will never ever think. He will never ever think of harming anyone, ever. He will never ever think of making anyone sad, even for a second. He doesn't mean it. He is perfected in his loving kindness, compassion, mutual joy, and equanimity. Our God is much, much better than any other God in any other religion. Our God is patient, kind. He is moreover, he is wise. He wants everyone to be good. And those who are evil, well, he wishes them to become good. He will never ever put anyone into hell. Why would he do it? What's that nonsense? He's busy with his meditation joy. He doesn't need to be, wow. God is busy with his joy, with his peace. He doesn't have time to put people into hell. Why would he do it? So Buddhist God is much better God to worship than any other God. Why? Because you can be inspired by the Buddhist God. You cannot be inspired by Christian God. You would have to kill and steal. But the Buddhist God is inspiration. So we are now very much over time. But the Buddhist God is much more inspirational than any other God in the world. So if you ever want to believe in God creator, believe in the Buddhist God creator, in the God who never kills, who never steals, who never deceives. Allah says something. You know what Allah says in Quran? But the Muslim scholars, when I show them, you see, in Quran, it's written, Allah is the best deceiver. And they're, really? Oh, I didn't know that. What? You're a Muslim scholar. You should know that. Like, how come that I, a Buddhist monk, will be showing you what's in Quran? They don't know it. They have written in Quran that Allah is a better deceiver than the deceivers who want to deceive Allah. He's written it. It's there. But can you imagine? What kind of leader is that? If you want to follow a God, then you'd better follow a God who does not kill, does not steal, does not deceive, right? Because if you follow a God who kills, steals, and deceives, then probably you will be inspired by that. Just like we see with Muslims. Muslims are so much inspired by the God's teaching on killing. Because the God says that the God will kill. He doesn't tell Muslims you must kill. Well, it's complicated, but most of the time, the God says he will kill. But well, that's inspirational. The Muslims get inspired by that God. So they kill. They're not supposed to kill, but they're inspired by their leader, the God. So what about to have a God who does not kill? And in Buddhism, we are absolutely certain that such God exists. There is no like, oh, maybe there's some God like that. Oh, some story speak. No, no, no. I tell you, that God exists. I have absolute faith that there is a God who has full control over this world, who has been first in this world, who is the most powerful in this world. Now, when the Buddha is not here, of course, the Buddha is more powerful, but Buddha is not here. I absolutely believe in that God. And that God is perfect, immaculate in loving kindness, compassion, mutual joy. That means that he rejoices when others rejoice, and in equanimity. That means he is able to accept that others suffer and enjoy based on their previous actions. I have full belief in that God. I have no doubt. I didn't see him, that's true. But I have no doubt in terms of the belief that such God exists. And I believe that all of you also will benefit very much if you believe in that God. And then, in addition to that, in Buddhism, we train ourselves so that if we want, we can become that kind of God too in the future, or that we can become something even better. Because the problem with the Buddhist God is that he will die one day. He doesn't know it. He doesn't know it. But we know it. Because the Buddha remembered his past lives when he was that God, and he knows that he died. So when he speaks, when he is in connection with that God, then he knows, oh, you're God. Well, I was that God too, and I know that I died thousands and thousands of times when I was thousands and thousands of times exactly the same God as you are. So it's highly probable that you'll die too. So the Buddhist God will die one day, but he doesn't know it. But we know it. So that's the point here. What makes us so different from the other religions? In the other religions, their knowledge is indirect, and it's coming through a source which has vested interest. Whereas in Buddhism, the knowledge is direct. Moreover, in the other religions, the knowledge that you get indirect, you get only as the prophet or as the founder of the religion. In Buddhism, the direct knowledge is achievable not only by the Buddha, but all of you. The Buddha has provided the instruction how to achieve the direct knowledge. That's something you will not have in any other religion. Well, in Hinduism, a little. But in Buddhism, that's the main point, that not only that the Buddha knows, but all of us can know too. If you follow the right instructions for meditation, you can actually remember how in your past lives you were that God who is worshipped today by Christians and Muslims and so on. Now, I need to be careful here because God is two. One God, which is more of a being, and one God, which is more of a nature. And modern Christians, especially scientists, do not believe in God as a being. They believe in God as the nature, the fact that there are laws in the world, and that itself is their God. It is called deism. I will write it for you in the chat box. Deism. And deism is the modern form of Christianity. It means that the nature itself is the God. The laws themselves, the way the world works, is the God. So in that case, we could say that kamma, or the conditionality, which is a wider meaning than just kamma, conditionality in Buddhism is their God. In that case, their God is Dhamma, and in that case, we worship the same thing. Because in Buddhism, we do pay respect to Dhamma, to the truth of the world. And they also pay respect to the truth of the world, to the way how world works. So they actually also worship the truth. That's Daisen. Buddhism is a kind of Daisen, but with wider understanding of what is the nature. In Christianity, the knowledge of their Deos, of their God, is limited to that what they learn from Bible and so on. Whereas in Buddhism is unlimited because we get the direct access to the knowledge. We're not limited to the source that provides us with the knowledge. Okay, so this was an extended answer to Fukbao. So what do you think about that answer? Are you satisfied?
Thank you. I'm very happy with your answer.
Nice. Thank you.